Hi everyone, and welcome to this first episode of season 2 of the P3 podcast. Pretty special sort of episode tonight. We've not just got one guest, we've got two, and actually one of them is going to be our co-host, and he's on the line. Ed Clancy, what are you, MB, OB now, 3 Olympic goals, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you've obviously been pivotal in tonight's guest, Ed. How are you doing, Ed? Everything all right?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, cheers, Phil. Good to see you again, and thanks to G-Man for joining us today. But
Yes.
I'm good. Well, yeah, I'm just so glad I won't ride my bike today. The weather's been absolutely shocking over here, and I'm sure it's a different story for G-Man over in Monaco and that, loading it up in the sun on his balcony. But
it was a bit overcast today, actually, Ed.
Mate, yeah. What was the temperature?
Oh, it was like low teens.
Oh no,
pretty cold, pretty chilly down here.
I'll send you some warm milk in the post, yeah.
That'll sort you out. So obviously introduced already, Geraint Thomas, thanks so much for joining us on the P3 podcast, mate.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Really good, especially such a busy times. And I think, you know, we sort of touched in a sort of preamble before we come on air. I'm a South Walian myself. I just want to know a little bit about like how you got into cycling from Cardiff, because I know for a fact where I'm from, if I turned up at the local rugby club in Lycra, I would probably got my head kicked in. So, like, what was it like growing up in Cardiff where cycling really wasn't the thing from my perspective or perception?
Yeah, no, it was exactly the same in Cardiff, basically. It was, I only got into it because I was going swimming down the local leisure centre, and they happened to have an outdoor velodrome there, Maindy Stadium. And yeah, just joined. I've just seen these bikes with no brakes and one gear, just wanted to give it a go. Got the newcomers track record. And ever since then, I just loved it. Yeah, I think just, you know, made some good mates down there. There was a good little group of us that would travel away on the weekends to all over the country, you know, up to like Scunthorpe and, you know, Manchester, London way, Reading and Essex. And so, yeah, it was great, like trips, weekends and stuff. And that's the reason I got into it, basically, was the fun side of it, really. It wasn't anything, you know, serious, really, at the time. You know, even after the racing, we'd be playing football or rugby or a bit of cricket or whatever when we were, like, you know, camping out and stuff. So it was just a good laugh and things. But yeah, it was kind of like you have two sort of sides to you, really, because you have your cycling side and then you have your school side, and none of them have any idea what you're on about. Like, I remember the first time I shaved my legs and didn't tell anyone, would wear like joggers in PE just so I didn't stand out too much. But luckily, no one picked up on it. I managed to get away with that. So
yeah,
that's a bad sign, isn't it, when you've got to like hide the fact from your mates that you enjoy cycling. But you know, since I realised we were going to get you on this podcast, G-Man, I was thinking a lot about like the past and stuff. And bear with me a sec, I'll get to my point eventually. I went down some podcast hole the other day when I was driving my van, and it was really talking about like kids and how important play is for kids to like develop mentally and learn and, you know, do all that sort of socializing skill. And, you know, when I think back to the times we had together, you know, in the team pursuit and stuff before Beijing, I just think about all the stupid stuff we did, and 99.9% of it you couldn't mention on here. But you know, personally, it's been a pretty flat year from, you know, so many different reasons. And I kind of feel like I've really missed just not playing as such. Adults don't play, do they? But I've missed fun and I've missed the banter. And I don't know, do you think that's been important to you in your career, like, and do you still do it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I was listening to a podcast as well the other day. I can't remember what it was now, but they're basically saying, you know, when you're a kid, you do it because you love it and you just want to enjoy it. And you can see it in some people who just lose sight of that. They get bogged down with all the pressure around it. You know, you might end up, you know, you get older, you get a mortgage, a family, you know, you're competing, but you're also getting paid, and it turns into more of a profession and more of sort of a chore sometimes to some people. Or even, you know, like you guys now still on the track, you know, your whole sort of career is based around one event every 4 years. And, you know, it's a lot to sort of commit to, isn't it, really? Because so much can go wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the main thing is you still enjoy it. I still love just riding my bike. And I think I'm fortunate that I'm still in the team now in the Oscar Grenadiers. You know, Ben Swift's there, Luke Rowe's there, who, you know, I was dancing around in my boxers in Luke Rowe's house when I was 12. You know, we go way back, and that's Swifty was racing when I started. Stannard's just retired this year, but same with him. Been racing with him since I was 12 or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's key, really. I think I've been lucky that I've been in a British team for most of my career, and just that mentality and just that way of sort of switching off together, really, and having a laugh together. And because 3 weeks in the Tour de France is pretty intense, let alone when you're trying to win the bloody thing, either with myself or somebody else. And the intensity there, like with the media and the fans every day, and you definitely need to have that time to just switch off, but then also, like you say, just enjoy it. Like, actually realize, like, this is the Tour de France that we're doing. And if you're told, like, a 13, 14-year-old G that you're going to be in the Tour and blah blah blah, I would have like pissed my pants. I think it's easy to forget that. And so I think exactly that. I think the main thing is it's still enjoying it. And I'm just thinking about some of those days, some of those times when we were in Newton the Willows now. Like, Ed basically bought the first house out of the two of us, and he did all this research about, where's cheap, but where's also quite close to the velodrome, and also good for road bikes.
Ed doing some research on data. Nah, I don't believe that for a second.
So I basically piggybacked off him and just bought a house 200 meters down the road from him.
He didn't even look at it. He just bought it.
Because if Ed's looked into it, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I didn't go see it, did I? Yeah.
You didn't even buy it. I think your dad, Howell, went out to have a look, didn't he? And you had a punt, and I can't remember how much it was, but you just handed over the money. It was like, let's just hope for the best.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I was
we didn't get broken into or anything too many times. We were all right. But just like for me, G-Man, like when I think back, it was just fun. Like, you were always the person out of the team pursuiters that, I guess along with me, that was just dead keen to have some banter and make light of situations. And I don't know, I've always admired that about you. Like, you're like a light switch, you'll party, you'll have a drink, and we almost like scheduled it in, when we're in Manchester together, like without really thinking about it. And I do sort of miss that. And I'm going to try to bring it back in a constructive way, I think. Sorry, Phil, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. It's great. And I think, going back to that, and I mean, it's really hard, when you're in the moment, probably for both of you, especially you, Geraint, that you don't understand, the people's perception of you, in terms of who you are, especially as an athlete. But a lot of the people I talk to in terms of you is like, I'd love to go for a pint with him. What a great lad. He's just down to earth, and I think that's a huge, huge sort of chuck up really for the type of person you are.
I think it's quite a Welsh thing as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I think you don't get many like big superstar knobheads, do you? Like,
no.
All the rugby boys are good lads, and even Gareth Bale, like the one-time most expensive player in the world, and I don't know him well at all, but just down to earth. I think he's.
I've got a question for both of you, in fact, if that's all right. So, hey, remember back, G, when we were down in, I think it was in Newport, and we were having a big night out. I can't remember what the occasion was. Probably just being young and stupid. And like every Welsh bloke I've met, I just get on with like really, really well. However, if you're on a night out and you're English in Wales, it's a dangerous place. Twice, you won't know him, Phil, but there's a lad called Dale Appleby. He was a domestic road rider for a long, long time. He's one of G's best mates. And twice he had to save me from literally a gang of Welshmen starting fights on me because I was English.
Yeah.
Why is that? That's my question.
Oh, to be fair, we were in Newport on a Saturday night, so
you could be from anywhere.
I wouldn't go out in Newport on Saturday night anymore.
Yeah.
But in truth, Ed, it does depend who you're with, mate. I mean, there's obviously a bit of banter that when you've had a few drinks goes a bit far, and it's normally about the rugby, and we do tend to get a bit passionate and protective about our rugby. So just don't start niggling back, because obviously in Cardiff you're outnumbered, and especially in Newport you haven't got a chance. So depends who you're with, but the majority of people mean well. They'll have some really good banter and good fun, and it sounds like you were either completely stitched up by your mates. Or
the funny thing is, I don't remember speaking to any Welsh fellas outside of our bubble, and it's not like I was shouting across the road. I wasn't like 20 pints in or anything, but somebody must have overheard me then. All of a sudden, like the whole place had wind of the fact that there was an outsider in there. Honestly, Dale Appleby twice sort of came steaming in to break up a fight that hadn't even been started. So
I can't imagine.
I always look Dale for that.
I honestly can't imagine you two getting into scrapes on a night out. It must be quiet. Two little angels sat in the corner, I'm sure. Going back, Geraint, to those younger days, and obviously as you matured, and I have visions of you, just getting on your bike on a Saturday morning, jam sandwich in the back pocket, heading up to Brecon or down the coast or whatever. Is that what you did when you started extending your horizons and riding further?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just down the local club, like meeting outside Cyclopedia, local bike shop, and just going out with all the boys. And at the time, when I must have been maybe 15 then when I started doing some like decent long rides. And yeah, at the time they must have only been in their late 20s, early 30s, but they were like, wow, these are fully grown men. Well, you are when you're late 20s, aren't you? But like there was like the old boys in the club as well, like who, I don't know, to me they seemed like they were 70, but they were probably in their 50s, and they just go all day. And like I remember being up like Story Arms way, and I recognized Story Arms, and I was like, holy shit, like we came here like a couple of weeks ago with the school, and like I was like, we're so far from home. That was easily like an hour on the minibus. Like I can't get dropped now because I've absolutely no idea where I am. Not that they would have left me anyway, but as a kid, you're just like, wow, I need to like, stay with these boys. And yeah, so many times I'd get back completely like empty, like bonked on the bike, and yeah, get back and have one of my mum's massive Sunday roasts waiting for me. F1 on. It was
Amazing.
good times, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So bridge a gap for me from a psychological perspective. And what I'm talking about there is like the belief, where did the belief and the evidence come in your ability to grow on the road? So you're a youngster going up to Story Arms. And I don't know if you ever had that experience when you first climbing hills or mountains at that stage, which they are to you, isn't they? You're like, I'm not sure if I can get up here, never mind get up here quick. And I think this will resonate with the amateur cyclists where maybe go off to, south of France for a summer holiday, blowing, I'm now obviously bridging the gap to elite to the point where you're winning the Tour de France. What was your mindset cycle through? And were there any pivotal points?
I think, without sounding a bit like a knobhead, I was always like kind of good at it. And I was always like, sort of one of the best in my little area.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just always loved it and always dreamt of being part of like the pros, and always kind of just expect is probably the wrong word, but was kind of confident that I would make it in a roundabout way. And I'm not a confident guy in the way that I just go around telling people, like how Cav is like, he's a confident guy, and he's comfortable chap, and he'll let you know what he's going to do, what he's going to win, and this and that. Whereas, I don't really like to talk about it. I like to keep my own sort of, desires and whatever just in my head.
But what do you think on so what I've seen with Cav in the press is he'll make a statement because he wants to commit himself to it. I've said I'm going to win it, so I'm going to go for it. Where other people, and maybe this is what you're alluding to, they say that to themselves, not out loud.
Yeah, like you make a big goal in your head. Like for instance, when I decided, right, I want to go and try and win Grand Tours now, but I didn't come out in Cycling Weekly and say, I'm going to win a Grand Tour now, But I told the team, like I said to Dave, this is my target, and that puts pressure, that almost like formalizes it, and like, right, I'm definitely doing it now, and this is what I'm going for. But I think is when I won the junior track worlds, like I won the scratch race in Los Angeles, and I think that was the turning point. Really, that was the biggest sort of switch when I was like, oh, actually no, I really want to do this and can do this for a living. And the track was my main focus then. So it was about going to the Olympics, trying to win Olympic gold, but at the same time, still wanted to turn pro and still dreamt of winning the Tour, but never thought that was possible. But then as the road career develops, you target one-day races, and then, shorter stage races, 5 days, and then like a week. And then suddenly, you're in with a shout in the Grand Tours and you commit to that. So it was kind of over a long period, really, that progression.
I think that marries up with the ability where you have to be physically strong and psychologically strong to be able to put yourself in that position, to do that and being in that environment for a bit longer. And I know that, Ed, we've spoken in the past about, your little dabble on, in terms of on the road in the continent. And I think you went there similar times, didn't you, in terms of different areas, different teams. But for me, I must be a massive rude awakening.
Oh, I mean, like Geraint's already touched on it. I think as long as I've known him, he's always had this quiet confidence in himself, and he doesn't talk much at all, to be honest. But he's always thinking behind those sort of vacant eyes, you know. And, yeah, no, it was funny. Like I remember going to like, you know, track races and World Cups and things, and even, you know, before like the Olympic final in Beijing, Shane Sutton came round and what did he say? We're doing you're doing 14 twos. 14 twos is going to win. And then as soon as he walked off, G just shook his head and said, we're going to do 14 O's. And like, you know, we had no evidence to think we were going to do that, but we did it, or we had a good go, you know. And that's what G's like. And I think it's that sort of mindset that I talk about G a lot, you know, when I speak in front of, you've seen me speak about him before, Phil, you know, he just has this quiet confidence. And I think that's what really took him to the top of the road as well, where others didn't quite make it, including myself. And it must have been 2007. And I was out there in Belgium with Paul Manning and Lambo Credit. And, you know, G was living in Italy riding for Barlow World, and he didn't often ring. But when he did, I knew there was something going on. And he was going through the Tour de France. And that particular day, he said he got dropped after, what was it, 5-10 kg? And you said you roll the whole stage out the back on your own.
Yeah, it was the first big mountain day and went out the back on the first climb. It was only like a third cat climb maybe, and we had a couple of, you know, out of category climbs to come. That was a big day, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just that mental resilience you have that kind of sets you apart, you know. How many people get thrown into the Grand Tour and you didn't finish in the Lantern Rouge? I think you were second to last overall, but you know, every day I remember you just took a shoe in, and you took a shoe in, and occasionally I get a text off you when you're on the massage bed with Hanley trying to like fix you for the next day. And I don't know, just to go from that place to like winning the Tour. I know I'm your mate on that, but I'm just in awe of that sort of mental resilience you have. And you know, even your injuries and stuff. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on Geraint Thomas injuries and comebacks. And yeah, I know you're fighting a little one at the moment, but yeah, I think that's what sets you apart to me. It's just that mental resilience, G-man.
But the really small experience I've had of it, and you guys, you know, you with Team GB, Ed, you know, for a long duration now, and Geraint through your teams, you're not really thinking about that in the moment. You're just doing your job, and you're getting on, and you go, right, what have I got to do to get back on a bike tomorrow? What have I got to go to execute the race? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's just it's something I've always had. Just you always give 100%, and like, yeah, for instance, like you say, if you crash, you just, where's my bike? Get me back on, and then, you know, get to the finish and deal with consequences after, and see what's wrong with you then. And yeah, that's something I've always had, and just that drive, I guess, this in you, and is something you can't really train it. Well, you might tell me different, but I think it's just something that it's just, if you want something, just fucking get your head down and go for it, you know, and that's it. And I think, you know, it's when I spoke to Steve Peters back like 2008 sort of time, who used to be our psychologist back then, and he'd come out with stuff about, you know, going out and doing your best and, you know, not worrying about anyone else. And, you know, you've done all you can to get here, and now just enjoy it all. And that's stuff that my dad used to tell me when I was like down in Maindy as a 12-year-old. And so it's kind of, I've always sort of had that approach, really. So I think I'm lucky to have had someone like my dad as well, who didn't really, you know, back then you'd see so many pushy parents, and as we all know, and, you know, telling your kids to do this and that, and, you know, trying to talk tactics to a 14-year-old, and it's like, just get out there and race your bike, you know. And so yeah, I'm fortunate really that sort of my dad sort of was a big factor in sort of my mental sort of attitude, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think your upbringing is massively important in terms of building that resilience and their exposure. And I think that, you know, every parent, you know, wants the best for their children, and they want to give them the best advice. But sometimes you ignore your parents. If my son's anything to go by, where he's like, yeah, Dad, that makes logical sense, but I'm still peed off because I should have played better, or I should have won that. So I'm going to use that to drive me further and drive again, because I need to remember that.
Yeah. And there's so many times now when I look back at things that happened when I was like 14 or something. And at the time I was like, why? Like my dad, I don't know, telling me not, no, you can't do this, or not to do with cycling, but just anything, you know. And then you look back when you're old, you're like, oh, I can see where he's coming from there. And I do exactly the same now. But at the time, it's just your mum and dad, isn't it? And you have to rebel a bit. But yeah, definitely lucky for them, really.
Especially as you mature. So just sort of, if we carry on that vein, if that's all right. So obviously not so long ago, it probably seems like a year ago for you now, but obviously you had that freak incident at the Giro this year, the Giro d'Italia. And for the non-cycling fans that are listening to this, obviously one of the three big races. And obviously you were tipped. It seemed like you were in great condition, favourite to win it. And then, but I think it was stage 2, wasn't it? It was just a random water bottle someone's thrown at the curb, flipped you off your bike, you've injured yourself. And then, unbeknown, I think, to you at the time, how bad the injury was, you then cycled, over 120, 30 Ks up Mount Etna with a broken pelvis. So, and you got to the end. So that chimes with what you were saying in terms of just get on, get it done and sort it out at the end. What's going through your mind in that moment of, do you know how bad the injury is? Do you know that you just want to get through today and then we'll reassess whether we can bridge the gap tomorrow? Or is it like, do you know that something's not quite right?
To be honest, I remember saying to Swifty, who I mentioned earlier, who I've known since I was 12, and he was in the race with me, and he committed to be there as best he could to try and help me win, and it was like massive for the both of us really to be there together trying to win the Giro. But yeah, I said to him, like, within 10K after doing it, like it was in the neutral zone as well, so they stopped the stage, allowed me to get back. Didn't have any spare kit, so the mechanics pinning my skin suit together because it was all flapping open, half my ass was out, and it was just like, it wasn't pretty. But yeah, we were getting going. I just said to Swifty, look, I just don't feel right. This feels similar to 2013 when I fractured my pelvis then in the Tour. I was just like, it just doesn't feel, this isn't right. And he was like, yeah, well, we'll just get through today and then we'll worry about it later. And I was like, yeah, sound. So let's get to the front. Let's ride as if nothing's wrong. I sent the boys back to get me some painkillers because I didn't want to go back to see the team or the race doc, because I didn't want the other teams to know I was suffering, and just trying to bluff it basically. And then, but once I got to the bottom of Etna, which was, a big sort of maybe 16K or 10-mile finish climb. And I went out the back before we even started the climb. There was a few little ramps and I was straight out the back, and some of the guys stayed with me. Garner, who's like world time trial champion, like super talent, and he's waited with me with Swifty. And it was horrible really, because I'd committed so much to that race, and I just knew then that it was over. Like I knew deep down, I was like, this isn't right. Like I've definitely broken or fractured something here. And then I knew getting dropped at that point as well, the actual overall of the race was basically going to go that day as well. I was going to lose too much time. And I ended up losing 12 minutes to the leaders, about 9 minutes to the peloton, which isn't too bad really with 3 fractures in your pelvis. Like, because I had an x-ray straight after the stage and they were like, oh yeah, no, it's fine, nothing wrong, start tomorrow. So I was like, oh, that's a result at least. But then like I was walking, I was like, this just isn't right. Like, doc, like, can I not get an MRI tomorrow before the start? Because the start was quite a late start. So then he was like, yeah, okay, I'll look into it. Got me an MRI. Sure enough, there was a fracture. And that's it, went home. And then 4 weeks later, just to check that it was all healing right, I had another MRI in Cardiff, and they were like, oh yeah, it's healing well, but you got 3, it's not just 1 fractures. So
wow.
Yeah, but there we go. It was the hardest bit mentally was the fact that I'd committed so much to it, and it was a disappointing to miss the Tour. But I just felt I wasn't in the right shape to win that, so I just committed to the Giro and said, look, I'll 6 more weeks of training, another couple of races, and I'll be ready to go in the Giro. And 100% committed to that. Like, didn't see, I got a son who's maybe 14 months now, and my wife, and didn't see them. So I think I saw them maybe 4 days out of the 6 weeks. I went to the Giro, fully 100% for that, and was, like you say, I think I was in better shape than I've ever been really. And so for it all to end on the 3rd day was just like, that was the hardest bit to take really. And it took a bit of time to just sort of get over that. But
I can imagine, and that it's a lonely ride. Then I would have thought, you're dropping back, the race is slipping away. You're praying and hoping that, it's not as bad as you think. But then even that, I can imagine is, well, actually, if there's no fracture here, could I have pushed a bit harder, even though you tried? You start questioning yourself.
Yeah, like 2017, I crashed out of the Tour, broke my collarbone, and the doctors, like, right on the crash site, he was like, gee, it's broken. He was Spanish. That's my Spanish accent.
Brilliant. I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, are you sure though? He's like, yeah, it's broken. I was like, no, I'm going to keep going. You never know. So I carried on. And then my shoe, my buckle had come undone on my shoe. So I leant down to do it up and all my weight went through the side that I'd injured. And the pain was just like agony. I was like, yeah, I think I have broken this now. So I ended up doing that descent and then stopped. And yeah, in the ambulance going to the finish, I was exactly thinking that. I was like, this collarbone better be broken now, otherwise
Yeah.
I'm never gonna live this down. But
Yeah.
To be fair, I'll give you that, G man. You do your best to walk off injuries. Like going back a long time now. Was it like 2004, 2005 when you lost your spleen at the side of that road in Australia?
Oh yeah.
Now, shit, you're not, Phil. He just got up. He sort of propped his bike up the side of this fence, sat down for 30 seconds, and he was going to get back on his bike. So,
well, you know what the drive for that is. I mean, I'm not sure who the number one Welsh rugby player was in those days, but he knows that he sees Alan Wynne-Jones getting smashed up every Saturday, and he's got to get up and play on. So if he doesn't, we might have to take the dragon off his flag. It's that little pride and that inner drive, Geraint, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the Giro itself then? So, just I think sometimes the media forget that you guys in spotlight there and you professional athletes are human as well, and let's face it, they do try and stitch you up. And I do remember seeing a question or a comment around how do you feel about Teo winning it, and it must have sort of gone back to when Egan Bernal won the Tour de France the year before. That as a human, it's okay to be chuffed a bit for my teammate, but gutted that I didn't win it because I should have been there doing that. That's completely human. And you can't say that because whatever you say, they're going to twist it.
Yeah. 100%.
How frustrating is that for you?
It is annoying that you can't be honest sometimes because it's going to be taken the wrong way. And yeah, exactly that. I was made up that the team won, to see all my, especially Swifty and that, but they're all good mates, the guys that rode the Giro, and to see them win it was great. I was over the moon for them. Like who would I have rather win that? Like Teo or that Hindley dude? Like, of course I'd want Teo to win.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you do have the disappointment. Like, wow, geez, like I could at least still be there with them. And yeah, it's just like disappointing. And I think at least with the Tour in 19, I was still there and still a part of it. And then, ended up second. And so it wasn't too bad, But yeah, the thing with the media and stuff is you learn pretty quickly. Like, I thought I was used to it after all the Olympic stuff, but then after winning the Tour, got stitched up a few times and was just like, this is just mad, really. And I think that's the one good thing about living out here. Like, I miss all family and friends at home and all that. But I think just being out of that UK sort of sportsman bubble, really, like, I can see how some people really struggle with it.
Yeah, and I think as well, going back to that point I made earlier in terms of, a lot of the lads and that I work with said they'd love to go for a pint with you as a sportsman, just because you're authentic and you are who you are. And it must be so difficult that you can't even be yourself, even when who you are is a good person. That must be so frustrating. Do you know what I mean? You would never kick someone's back legs out. You would never stitch anybody. You would never criticize anybody. But that as soon as that microphone goes under your face, they're after that headline, aren't they?
Yeah. And most of the time it's okay. Like, I can just be honest and make a few, off the cuff sort of jokes, which sort of come around to bite you on the arse sometimes when people don't understand your sense of humor. But yeah, there is the odd one with the, like, really just sort of like go for any sort of angle. And that's when you're just like, I just can't be arsed with this. Like, and there's a few journalists now. I'm just like, I just can't be arsed speaking to that guy because you just know they're always after something, and that's just the way it is, and you just got to accept it. That's part of being like an athlete, really. So
yeah, I suppose especially when you put the pressures of what you're under. Granted, they've got a job to do, and I never really see that as a justification, to be honest. But you're living like a monk, not just the 3 weeks of the race. And this is the same for you, Ed, with your camps and your Olympic camps and that. Is that it's the weeks and months preparations before that. It's your pre-season camps that. When you've got such a long day, especially when you're competing really well, you're getting held behind for your drug testing, or if you've won, you've got the prize ceremony. And then on top of that, it's already long drawn out. And now you got somebody asking you a question, trying to stitch you up. It must be so frustrating. And I don't envy you, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, Ed, as well, like when the training those months before, those dark days in Manchester in November, December, they're the worst bits, the racing is almost the easy bit.
Yeah, I reckon you're right, G-Man. You know, you sort of get this. I think everyone, like, almost, even if they do it subconsciously, they work out like a bit of a game plan, don't you? You know, when you're warming up, you know, when you're getting on your bike, and you almost learn how to control your own thoughts and emotions, don't you, by the time you sort of hit your 30s. And yeah, no, I think you're right there, G-Man. The 9 times out of 10, I think it's you don't win the race on like whatever the 4th of July. You know, you win it in the months and years even preceding it, don't you? It's that. It's boring, isn't it? It's that old like quote: "Excellence is a habit, not an act." And it is. It's true. It's just made up of, like, you know, all the mundane stuff: eating your 5 fruit and veg today, getting your 10 hours of sleep in, and having weekly communication with your coach, and just ticking all the boxes. Then you just get up on the day and just like tick the boxes, I guess. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, G-Man, I can't relate to all the press and all that stuff that you have to put up with these days. And you know, I do love being back home in Britain, and I'm fortunate that I've, you know, able to ride one of the greatest teams in the world. And I guess it's a blessing and a curse, the track being less high profiled, you know, so I don't miss any of that stuff. And I think, you know, around the home Olympics in 2012, we both had a bit of a taste of, I guess, like the high life and being in the media spotlight and all that. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be in it every day.
Yeah, and I suppose, Geraint, you've had almost 10 years of that, not just the Olympics, but obviously with Team Sky now in EOS, you've had quite a bit of practice with that. And I think what you were saying, Ed, in terms of, you know, success is a habit as well. You know, it's not something that just happens overnight. You know, he's lucky he's won the Tour de France. Well, hang on a minute. There's 20 years of graft gone into this. Can you see your growth, Geraint, from the formation of, you know, Sky, you know, and your work as a domestique, and obviously the likes of Bradley Wiggins winning it, and your own successes, to be fair, and the amazing performances you had, to then helping, you know, obviously Chris Froome, to then growing yourself to, well, actually, I know I can win this now. Was there some sort of psychological and physical growth in that period?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was like you're learning all the time mentally. Just, you know, watching Brad, watching Froome, like not just what they do well, but what they do badly. From a helper point of view, and you try not, yeah, you're just aware of that. So then when you end up in that position, you got to lead the team, you're a bit more mindful of some of the things they did, which didn't necessarily work well for me. But then at the same time, a sport like cycling there's so many different cultures and, you know, nationalities. It is a tough one. But yeah, physically, it's certainly developed. But certainly more of a slow burner than what they are these days. You know, they win the Tour when you're 21, 22, which is a bit crazy.
Was there any like light bulb moment, like, G-Man? You know, because when I knew you as a track rider, here, I was a picture of you, funnily enough, back in 2008 with Paul and Brad. But like, you know, you were always, like you said, you were sort of like a slow burn on the road. I talked earlier about how you sort of finished your first Tour de France in a bit of a state, and then, you know, you sort of climbed up the rankings, and then you kind of built the role as like a, not a domestique, a super domestique is what you call them, isn't it? You know, you're up there. You're definitely like one of the very best domestiques in the world. But then there was like this light bulb moment that just went off, and then I don't know what it was, because, like, you know, you were out of my life by then, living out there. But there was, you know, from the outside, there was just a switch in you. And, you know, when I've texted you more recently, we've had communications, you know you can do it now, and you've got this like belief. But there was almost like a black and white moment from the outside where it's like, this is my new level now, and this is where I see myself at.
Yeah, I think it was like the 2015 Tour. Like each tour I was doing, I wanted to get further and further into the race, further up the last climb, you know, and my job, basically the jobs, you know, you either finish 50K to go, or, you know, the last guy could be with the leader to the finish line, or at least a K to go. So each year I wanted to be closer and closer to that finish line. And then, yeah, 2015, I was like up there every day, you know, there was cobble stage on the flat, and I was there when some of the other boys who should have been there weren't. And then, you know, in the mountains, you know, was there. And then suddenly it's like start at stage 19 and I'm still 4th overall. Yeah. And, but then that day I had a bad day, and I completely, like, I'd burnt all my matches, you know, I'd used up too much energy the whole race, like helping through me, and then hadn't thought about myself in any way really, and blew up, and then ended up I don't know, like 15th or something. Like that day, I just sat up completely, lost 20 odd minutes and tried to recover the best I could so I could still do something the next day for the team. But that was the point where I thought, oh, hang on, I can actually do something here. If I just look after myself and don't, I'm not riding in the wind all that time and doing this and that, I can certainly be on the podium in the Tour or, win one of the other ones. And so, yeah, that was the point which sort of really sort of clicked with me, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
I think there's like that, without going too theoretical, I think there's a bit of an equation where you got to have that talent, whatever you want to define that as. You want to have that consistency level of hard work, but you also need the opportunity. You need that right opportunity. And I think what you've done is proven yourself time and time again that should the opportunity arise, you're ready to put your hand up. And obviously you grabbed it with both hands, didn't you? And I'm sure you will again, because you've got a few years ahead of you, mate, haven't you? That's for sure.
Yeah, a few more, but they are running out slowly though. It's strange actually when, Stannard retiring this year and then, Ed next year, possibly. Yeah.
Hey, this is probably good. I don't know if this is worth like voicing, but man, you're and Pete Kenner, you two are probably like the biggest influences I had on sort of cracking on for another year,
Yeah. I remember speaking to you back in, when was it?
Like,
April?
Yeah. I mean, I really was. I mean, Phil knows this as well. I spoke to him about it, but I was really in sort of two minds about what to do. And I mean, we could have had a bit of an exit strategy, and there was other things we could have gone into, but yeah, no, it was you and Pete in particular that both said like, I don't want to quote you exactly, G, but you pretty much said there's plenty of stuff you can be getting on with, and it's a long time in retirement, and because I was sort of worried about like, are we going to be able to keep this up? I'm still going to be able to do my thing when I'm 36. And your message was pretty as much like, even if you've got a 1% chance of doing something amazing next year, it's a chance worth taking. And I was like, you know what, G man, we're going for it. So yeah, there's a little bit of inside info.
Well,
but how was it back being back in the track a couple of weeks ago, testing out the new bike and all that?
Oh man, it was great actually. I loved it, but it was a shock to the system. Like, because I turned up, they were like, "Oh, you got to ride around at 55k an hour to test this aero stuff." And I was thinking, 55k an hour, that sounds bloody quick. Yeah. And I'd basically been off the bike for 6 weeks because I'd fractured my pelvis, as I just said. And I don't even ride him for a week, and then I jump on the track, and just to be back on a pursuit bike on the track was just really nice feeling actually. And
it feel like a bit of a different place, just like there's different faces, different mechanics. It's just, do you know what I mean? I mean, I've just sort of seen it slowly evolve person by person over the years, but
yeah, it seemed different, but also nothing had changed. Like the feelings I got hadn't changed, but everything else around me had, really, other than the track. Obviously you got the BMX bit now. There's like some new gym, and the physio room's completely different. And we walked past somewhere, I was like, oh, that used to be a canteen, didn't it? And somebody was like, what? I've no idea. Like, I've been here 5 years, I didn't know that.
That's a physio room you're talking about, isn't it? Yeah.
So,
I'd even forgotten about that.
The only thing constant's changed, boys, that's for sure, isn't it? Now, Geraint, I'm conscious of time, mate. I've got a couple of quickfire questions, if that's all right. And you can blame your podcast mate for this, because I know you got What's Occurring with Luke, and Luke tries to stick in some questions there for the guys coming on. So he's obviously the one that does a bit of the prep. You just turn up and wax lyrical, no doubt.
He doesn't prep either.
He cups it. Right, he does a good job of it, to be fair. So we'll fire through these. So the biggest question I need to ask is, what you prefer to be called? Because I get the impression G was like an in-house nickname, and then it got out there and expanded, and everyone would have known you as Geraint. What's the deal with that?
I like Geraint because not many people say it, but I don't mind G really. Like, although it is a bit weird when somebody I've never met before, is overly friendly. Yeah. Like almost hugging me, calling me G. All right, I just find that I don't mind, but it is a bit strange, really.
Yeah, I can imagine for sure. All right,
yeah, call me anything, really.
Call me what? I've been called worse.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So quick fire then. So sporting hero.
Thierry Henry.
Ah, interesting. Arsenal fan then.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one there. It's all right. It's not talking about
move
that
on.
Okay. Non-sporting hero.
I don't really. My mum and dad.
Oh, look at that legend. I'll make sure I tag her in this when I share it. Brilliant. Right. Picture the scene. 3 years' time, you're retiring. You're having a big private party in Cardiff, maybe Tiger. You're allowed 5 people. Me and Ed are already on the list. So there's 3 others. Who's coming?
This is probably really soppy, but my wife, my son, and then who will be the third one? Or maybe my other best man, Ian, because Ed was one of my best men.
Yeah.
Ian and Ed were my best men. So yeah, I'll be cracking, Howard.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason for these next questions. So another Tour de France win or another Olympic gold?
Oh, that's hard. Tour.
Another Tour de France or first Giro win?
Oh,
Sorry.
Tour.
Nice. 2021 goes perfectly. Everything's planned. You know, we park 2020. What's the one big goal for 2021? I think you've just explained it. Going to be the Tour.
The Tour. But, you know, the Olympics is only a week, 10 days after that. So you can wrap all that up in one big goal, can't you?
Yeah.
I'm going to be greedy.
Go for it. Do a Brad, innit? Double up in the same year from 2012. Don't blame you. And here's one for you. What's it mean to be Welsh?
Oh, it's everything, innit?
Bang! That's the answer. That's what I wrote down. I predicted the answer. That's all you have to say.
Somebody save me. Come on.
Guys, conscious of time, I know we're going to stay on after we finish the recording, but time flew by. I really appreciate all your time. Ed, thanks very much for co-hosting and obviously facilitating the setup. Geraint, I know you're a busy boy with a lot of stuff going on, but I really appreciate your time and thanks so much for joining us on the P3 podcast.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure.
Cheers.